You know, there's not many things that I can look at and genuinely say, wow, I hate this. I just don't think hate's a very productive emotion. I don't get much out of it. I don't think anybody gets much out of hatred, but there's one thing I can say I genuinely hate. It's this stupid Bobcat. This is Bubsy. Say hi to Bubsy, everyone. Just kidding, I hate you! There are 6 games starring this Bobcat. 6! There are 6 Yoshi's Island games, 6 Pikmin games, 6 Wario Land games. This Bobcat really thinks he's worth half as much as Assassin's Creed. Oh my god, there are that many Assassin's Creed games. There are more Bubsy games than good Star Wars movies, Species of Gorilla, or Layers in the Earth. This is Bubsy Claw's Encounter of the Third Kind. Funny title, I know. It was released in 1993 and everyone hated it. And if you tell me you liked it, no, you didn't. They then released an awful sequel, a terrible third game, and Bubsy 3D, which is so ugly I feel like it's giving me eye herpes. And after all that, the series went dormant for over 2 decades and everyone was happy. And then 2017 happened. Introducing Bubsy, the Woolies Strike Back, the game that someone asked for, and if you're that someone, I will never forgive you. Developed by Black Forest Games, a studio dedicated to rebooting older titles, the Woolies Strike Back genuinely tries to be a decent Bubsy game. So is it? Well, let's play it. On boot, we get an opening cinematic that serves as our introduction to the story. You see, Bubsy's just chilling in his house when these aliens called the Woolies steal his golden yarn ball. And that's it. Sometimes a simple story is all you need. After that little cinematic, we're booted to the title screen, which is fine. The artwork is really nice, but it lacks movement, action, something to really draw me in and make me want to play. The settings are pretty underwhelming, only allowing for some control and audio adjustment. Granted, the rest is done through a kind of proprietary launcher, although I don't understand why they didn't just put the options into the game. Also, the leaderboards button is really odd for a 2D platformer. Nevertheless, with the options out of the way, we'll hit the big button that says play and... oh no. So yeah, there's no way to delete save data on PC, at least that I could figure out. There's no information about it online, and there's no in-game options, so best case scenario is even the devs knew nobody was going to play this more than once. To make things worse, when starting the tutorial level, I spotted some pretty major graphical bugs. After checking the graphics settings, I saw that the game was automatically set to DirectX 10 and 11, and when changing it to DirectX 9, everything worked fine. Now, this, as far as I can tell, means that the game does have native DirectX support, but it doesn't actually work. Why? So finally, we can enter the tutorial level and start playing the game. Bubsy has 3 moves in this game. A jump, if you count that as a move, a pounce, and a glide. Running around and jumping feels fine, there's not a lot of weight to Bubsy, and the jump feels a bit stiff, but everything is serviceable. The glide serves as a double jump that slows your descent, and I actually quite like it. The weight feels really good, and the double jump allows for some interesting level design. The pounce is Bubsy's attack, used to kill enemies and break through these stone blocks, and it's not the best. He pounces at an arc, making it kind of difficult to hit enemies sometimes, and the amount of distance it covers can leave it feeling a bit unwieldy. That being said, chaining multiple pounces together is really satisfying, and it serves as a convenient way to travel long distances quickly. Wow, so Bubsy actually controls alright. I mean, it's nothing spectacular, but the fact I'm not running face first into enemies, well, for the most part, is nice. Art. What makes it good? What makes it bad? Well, that's for the philosophers of the world to decide, and while it may shock you due to the glasses I'm currently wearing, I'm not one of those. So while I can't definitively tell you that the art in this game is bad, the art in this game is bad. While the art direction that the Woolies Strike Back took from a stylistic perspective is actually pretty good, the game just isn't pretty. This game was released in 2017 for PC and PS4. It doesn't need to be the Sistine Chapel, but it should look better than a mobile game. Bubsy's animations are really stiff. They lack the squash and stretch I would expect out of a cartoon mascot character. The Woolies are really stiff too, and these bees are... oh, gross! Get it away from me! The platforms just look like generic video game platform, and the environments aren't great either. The forest looks fine, but it's more rock than grass really, and the area right after it is a desert. Yes, because if there's one thing I want in my cartoon platform game, it's the color brown. The last level is pretty cool though, taking place in outer space. The color palette is vibrant and the Woolies feel right at home here. It's really a shame the rest of the game doesn't take a more cartoony approach to its visual style because its attitude would suit a less realistic look far better. This game does not take itself seriously, and honestly that really adds to the charm. Bubsy talks a lot. Whenever you perform an action, there's a chance he'll say something. And this was a major point of contention in Bubsy 3D, where he wouldn't shut up. Thankfully, in the Woolies Strike Back, you can adjust how much Bubsy talks, and there are even some cute notes at the bottom of the slider. It goes from silent bobcat to occasional one-liners, a bit chatty, lots of talking, and then Bubsy. You know, for as much flack as I'm giving this game, that right there, that's funny. Bubsy also makes jokes about his gliding ability.
Pilot license? What for? Gliding down. Glide. Not flying. Wait. Oh, yes, I am. How am I gliding? I have no idea.
Bubsy's ability to glide has always been a point of criticism for the game, being that it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I never really liked that complaint though, and so seeing the devs respond to that with "shut up, I don't know" is kind of awesome. Yeah, but are the levels any good? The Woolies Strike Back follows a very linear path for progression. You play one level to unlock the next, rinse and repeat until you beat the game. No branching paths, no skipping levels, no optional bonus areas. What's here is what you get. The game contains 14 total levels if you include the tutorial, and for a game that was $30 on release, that is not enough content. Clearly Black Forest Games recognized this too because they dropped the price down to $20, which if you ask me is still too much. Now you may be thinking, Mikey, while there are only 14 levels in this game, maybe those levels are substantial enough to justify the price tag. Spoiler alert, they're not! The objective of each level is to get from point A to point B while collecting yarn balls, avoiding enemies, and completing platform challenges. However, there are some objectives to complete within each level, such as collecting every yarn ball, beating a level without dying, collecting all the extra lives, and opening up end-of-level vaults with 5 keys hidden throughout the level to get a bunch of extra yarn balls. With so much side content to complete, each level, rather than being a straight shot to the end, is instead a linear route with many branching paths. This sounds great. I mean, having a main objective for the player to complete and plenty of side content to promote replayability is a good idea, but this is a Bubsy game, so of course there's a catch. These levels aren't designed very well. You really have to comb through every crevice to get everything, and that just isn't fun. I want action-packed 2D platforming, not bobcat janitorial duty. These levels don't feel like large open areas, but rather a straight shot to the goal with a bunch of collectibles strewn about. Completing these side objectives just isn't fun, and since there's no real incentive to do them, toward the end of my playthrough, I just skipped them. The only thing you have to do to complete the game is get from point A to point B. All these extra objectives, all these little side challenges are filler. There's no point in doing them other than for completionist's sake, and if the game isn't going to put any effort into making the player want to complete it, I don't see any reason why they should. There's just one issue with this. Without exploring the levels and completing these challenges, this game cracks wide open. I completed the final level as fast as possible, no exploring, collecting, or completing extra platforming challenges. And the final level, the final challenge, took 1 minute and 55 seconds. It takes longer to eat a Hot Pocket than it does to beat the final level of this game. Now, all that looks pretty bad, yeah, but it gets worse because there are boss fights. And they suck. Hard. Each area on the Woolies Strike Back concludes with a boss fight, each being progressively more difficult than the last. However, there only being 3 areas means that there are only 3 boss fights, which, in other words, means that boss fights make up approximately 21.4% of the game. Now, this might be okay if the boss fights were fun. They're not, but it might be okay if they were. The attack patterns are pretty basic, and even still, I found myself dying a handful of times because they're so poorly telegraphed. This big UFO thing likes to just hover around for like 20 seconds, which is a huge pace breaker and makes the boss more annoying than anything. And above all else, getting all the yarn balls in these fights is really difficult because you're given an extremely limited opportunity to collect them during specific sections of the fight. This game would be better off without these, honestly. They don't really add any variety to the game and just feel pretty slapped together. The final boss isn't any better than the first two, just being a lot longer and even providing checkpoints at every hit, making dying inconsequential. After defeating it, we're treated to the credits with Bubsy flying away from the Woolly mothership with his prized golden ball of yarn. Looking at the credits, I noticed that the team that put this game together was actually really small, and the size of the team doesn't really make the game any better, but it's kinda cute to see the names in such a large font slide by in this short of a credit sequence. So that's Bubsy the Woolies Strike Back, a short, overpriced game with poor art direction and lackluster level design. And if you couldn't tell, I did not enjoy my time with it. I can see a genuine effort to make a good 2D platformer and poke fun at how infamous Bubsy has become over time, but it just really misses the mark in terms of overall quality. Unless you see this game on sale and you're really curious, I cannot recommend it to you, because what you see is what you get. A stiff platformer that nobody cared to play more than once. So, while Bubsy the Woolies Strike Back was a return to form for the series, it's by no means the last Bubsy game. That title actually goes to Bubsy Paws on Fire, which takes the gameplay in a totally different direction, so if you want to see me cover that, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, thanks a ton for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.